So today, those who have tuned in to listen to the podcast, today we have Bhagyashri Paste with us. Bhagyashri brings along a lot of experience in the risk and compliance. She has worked with the global organizations like EY, and currently she is solving the risk and compliance for the brands like CRED. Let's speak with her and let's understand that what has her experience shown her and what are the nuances of risk and compliance that she has broken through while working at the bigger organization and as well as the organization that is just still picking up in the field of fintech. So hi Bhageshi, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Manoj. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to share this space with you. And like Manoj said, I'm from the risk and compliance team at CRED currently. I've worked with EY previously, where I had a chance to work with global clients in various sectors like healthcare, telecom, finance. I worked on implementing information security standards over there and ensuring that the organizations are safe from the cyber attacks and cyber breaches that are very common these days. And currently, I'm working at CRED, where I help the organization ship compliant products and help the organization navigate through complex regulatory compliances that keep coming from RBI, SEBI, NPCI, so on and so forth. So, like Manoj said, I'd shared my entire journey of risk and compliance with you guys, explain what is risk and compliance. Trust me, it's not as boring as it sounds. And also give you an example about what are the trends and how technology and AI is driving and reshaping the new culture of risk and compliance.
Yeah. So thank you so much for that, Bhagesh. You said one word right now, and you said ship the compliant products. So let's start from there. What is a compliant product? Let's say, eventually right now, because of this AI buzz, people are shipping products left and right. Like by the time I get up in the morning, everyone is writing about this. I built this AI agent, I built this AI product, I built anything, this vibe coding. Then what is a compliant product? How do I make sure my product is compliant?
Absolutely. I think when you ideate any product, right, that in any sector, it could be in tech or it could be a fintech, it is very important that you look at what are the regulations saying about that particular kind of product. Okay. And you also have to take into consideration what kind of data your product will be working with. Is it financial data? Is it personal information? Is it sensitive personal information? And according to that, you have to layer your compliance and implement right tools so that product to the market, it has to be compliant to the regulations that are locally imposed by your government. For example, RBI regulations or SEBI regulations, or if it is a healthcare industry product, right? It includes your patient's data and which is very sensitive. So you have to ensure that the data, all of the data that is being processed by the product is as per the regulations. And these regulations, what these regulations actually speak about is how to maintain a secure environment to store this data, transfer this data, and you know
Mm,
process this data. And
correct.
also one of the most important factors is also to ensure that we are accountable to the kind of processing we are doing to this data. And the customers or the businesses whose data we will be processing are aware about what the data is being used for.
Yeah. So Bhagesh, again, I think while we're talking about data, you touched upon the three pillars, so the data at rest, data at transit, and data in processing. So one thing I would like to also, because for the audience, let's say my app do not involve any personal data. I am not in the health sector. I'm not in finance. Do I still need to be compliant? Or I'm like, doesn't matter because I do not have any personal data. So, or I'm not storing any personal data. So is it okay that can I just skip the regulations or can I skip being compliant?
That is a good question, Manoj. Generally, people feel that if there is no personal information that they are processing, they do not need to comply to security standards, which is not true. Security attacks are not just on your personal information. It can be an attack to disable your product or, deface your product or a DOS attack to, make your product stop working. You know, all of those kinds of attacks are very common these days. And in order to ensure that your product is resilient to all of these kind of cyber attacks, it is important that there are some security standards of outlining how your security architecture would look like, or what are the kind of firewall rules that you have to implement to ensure that these kind of attacks don't happen. So to ensure all of this and to ensure your business continuity overall, it is important that you implement compliance requirements or rules that are, stated by ISO or PCI or NIST, these kind of organizations. It's not just about protecting data, it's also, in a way, protecting your business from disruption. And also,
Yeah.
if any company has IPs, intellectual properties, even that is protected by following compliance. So it's not just limited to personal information.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very right point because a lot of times when I speak to my fellow founders, might not be in the regulated sector, or building the consumer products or something, and I think this is a very big myth people think about that because I am not in a regulated sector, I am not storing any personal data. I am okay not be compliant, but I think very rightly you said that it is not just about the consumer data or your customer data. It's also about protecting your own business. So now, Bhavishi, now I think we understand that about the compliance you said. Now you have worked at the two different pillars in your career, a global organization and a big four, EY, where they are very, very serious about everything. And I myself, having worked at Barclays, I know like when you work at such big organization, they can let go productivity, but they cannot let go compliance. You are completely okay that if you work a little lesser on a day, but they cannot let you be like you do not like you work less compliant in a day. And now you are in a company that has started like a couple of years back. And so, Bhagishri, what do you see? Not specific to CRED, but what do you see? Like, what is the biggest difference that you see when you work with a bigger organization compared to the companies that are they're just still building the framework, still building their pillars of governance? So, how has been that experience with you?
Again, a very interesting topic to speak about, I think, Manoj. If I have to draw analogies, consider EY as like a cruise ship, which is steady, stable, and everything is so deliberate. Documentation is literally the king over there. All the processes are laid out very well, and you have a certain approach, to solve a certain compliance issue. Everything is
Hmm.
documented.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I worked in various sectors of industries when I was in EY. So pharma
Hmm.
clients, life sciences clients, tech clients, telecom clients. And it is very interesting. It was very interesting to see how compliance means differently to all of these industries.
Yeah.
How data and protection of data is after all, we are trying to ensure the data is safe, but the purpose of securing the data is so different in all of these kind of industries. And I think when we speak about CRED, it's like when EY is like a cruise ship, CRED is like a speedboat, or any fintech or a startup is like a speedboat.
Yeah.
These companies
Agree.
are agile. We are launching bold products at regular intervals while making sure that every product is compliant to
Hmm.
security standards and regulatory standards. It's like we are embedding compliance right in the engine of the speedboat so that so that people can trust the product that we are launching.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's very fast paced. We have to be adaptable. We have to, take calls in a shorter duration of time in a company like this, but also make sure that compliance is an integral part of the product that are launched over here. It cannot be an afterthought. Compliance can never be an afterthought in
Yeah. Yeah.
companies
Yeah.
like this. So while both the companies have a different strategy, I think they both have the same agenda to build trust, just different ways of building trust and tools to
Yeah.
build trust and compliance into the products. So it
Yeah.
was very interesting.
Yeah, I think the trust part that you said is very, very important because, being the founder myself, when I reach out to the big customers or, the big companies, they only, the big reason they want to buy from me is because of the kind of background I bring. So it's like, okay, the guy has worked at Barclays. He will understand that what is he building. He understands the risk and compliance or he understands the nuances. I think trust is very, very, crucial part when it comes to the risk and compliance. So obviously you said one thing, building fast. How are you guys making sure at CRED that while you're building fast, you are not breaking the things or you are not jumping the rails. You are not giving away anything, making sure that all the check boxes are ticked because when it comes to the speed, you have to let go. you have to break some red signals. So how is that
Absolutely.
happening at CRED?
So we follow something called as the secure by design principle. The security team or the compliance team gets involved in the product ideation phase itself, right from the step at which the product is ideated to the step where we release the product to the market. We ensure we are in constant touch with the product team, with the infrastructure team, and reviewing every feature that we are building in that product. Even the kind of data that is being used, the kind of data that is being shared, all of these things are evaluated right from the initial stage of the product ideation and development and release. And there are checkpoints that we have put in for every step over here till the release so that we can flag out any risks. And if the mitigation is not possible immediately, set up compensatory controls at the right point so that we can still launch the product. And if there are any risks, we can lower the risk ratings wherever possible. So that's
Yeah.
the secure by design principle that we use over here.
No, I think that was a very nice point because again, early founders, we skip this part, and I would strongly recommend to every founder watching this. I think if you have achieved your PMF, if you're done with the product market fit, I think you need to go back to your basics, look at your architecture, make sure if you cannot employ someone full time, at least speak to a friend or make friends with Bhagyashri. At least you can engage people like this or the consultants, that just to make sure that if your design is secure, because like every other thing, your roots have to be very, very strong. Your fundamental base has to be strong. Else, you might build the product which has a scalability or something, but if it is not secure, and even if there's like a small chance that it will break through by attack, you can have a lot of losses. And like Bhagesh has also said, secured is not afterthought. It has to be thought from the day one. But again, like I said, being the founder, initial days, money is a crucial part. So do it after your product market fit. Don't do it before, then else you will be like, where should I spend? Because after PMF, you
Absolutely.
will have at least some fund flowing, or at least you will have something to show off to your customers. Now, Bhagashi, now I think, in current scenario where compliance people are very, very expensive to hire.
Mhm.
And I know it personally because and I think the reason is because there are no schools teaching compliance yet, no schools
Yeah,
or no colleges. And I think with you also, because you did your engineering and then your MBA, were you taught compliance in college or school, or how did you stumble upon this?
got it. So, like a lot of people in tech, I started with an engineering degree because
Yeah,
technology always intrigued me. So that is why I got into engineering. And
yeah,
the actual thing happened when I did my master's in IT business management at Symbiosis, where I understood how technology drives businesses. And I had this subject and a majors in information security over there back in that course, which helped me understand how compliance in turn powers technology and then businesses. So that is how I got into risk and compliance because of this course that I had in my college. It was one of the topics, yeah. And eventually, then I landed my internship at EY, where I helped implement a few compliance standards for a life sciences client. And that is when I realized that compliance is not about checking tick boxes anymore. It's about designing systems which
yeah,
can be trusted by people whose data is being used or the people who will be using this in their daily lives. And that is what actually, interested me in this kind of a profile. And from there on, I went to take a full time job where I was implementing security standards, auditing firms, and also navigating regulatory compliances. It was like being a digital guardian, it was so that everyone can use their financial apps or before sharing any personal data, can be empowered to know what is happening with their data and how they can protect their own data. So, like I say, it's a role of a digital guardian over here.
yeah, yeah. No, I think exactly right, because I think all of us who are in this field, I think we are the custodians. And
Absolutely, yeah.
when you have been given the responsibility of being the guardian or being the custodian, I think that's a very serious responsibility we hold. And I think that is the reason the big brands could be like CRED or could be EY or Barclays or Standard Chartered. That's the reason. we got the lines of defense. Even in the banking or even in the regulated, we call it line of defense. Very, very much like the defense forces. I don't think any other any other job role in the banks or any other job role in the fintechs is called line of defense apart from ours.
Exactly.
So, so we wear that, wear those stars with the proud that even when someone used to ask me if I'm going to any conference or something, people would ask me like, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm the second line of defense. So yeah, I can understand that trust part and how that we are the custodian, how we need to be careful. Also, now Bhagesh, now going back to the original question now, because since the compliance guys are expensive, a lot of people are trying to find out the shortcuts around AI. Or might be, so there are good parts. I think still there are a lot of good things that you can do with AI. But how are you using AI in your job role or in or simplifying the GRC for your companies?
Yeah. So AI is all over. It started with vibe coding, and everyone's caught on to it recently. And we at Risk and Compliance also thought, why not optimize our processes using AI? So when
Yeah,
you think about risk and compliance, it is absolutely, like I said, it is absolutely crucial for any organization, right? But at
yeah,
the same time, it is documentation heavy, and it is also that slows down the process. And also, yeah, so it was important for me to understand these pain points where risk and compliance or GRC slows down because of this manual work of documenting and identifying the list of controls and all of that. So what I tried to do was use, I was just, like I said, I was just vibe coding and I got onto it. And slowly I learned how to, actually use cursor and how to use different coding languages like NLP. And I was successful to build a tool that could parse the regulatory compliances that are coming in from RBI, SEBI, and NPCI, read the security controls in them in real time, and map it to the company's internal controls. So every time a new regulation came in, my tool would parse the regulation and map it to the products that we have in our organization and the relevant controls. So, and we had a real time compliance dashboard which shows us
oh my God.
which product, how much is it compliant, what are the new
Yeah,
requirements we have to implement. And that was amazing to see. So that is how we could reduce the time of our internal audit for these products to almost 70% because the documentation that we used to do is now been taken
yeah,
up by AI. And like
yeah.
people say, AI replace humans. It's not so. It's
No,
just
yeah,
helping you humans to do something better than just reading the documentations and
exactly.
doing the manual work. So there are challenges of AI. Your
Yeah,
data has to be precise.
yeah,
It will give you the outputs only according to the data that you put in, and also the fact that you need a human oversight to evaluate the results, take the accuracy and all of that. But I would, highly recommend everyone to imbibe the AI culture into their organizations and also start looking at new use cases in terms of risk and compliances. There are so
yeah.
many ways we can improvise our products and our dashboards and our automations using AI.
Yeah. No, I think that was a very, very good use case that when you have a early product and you just want to make sure that it is compliant with all the guidelines, and you can directly map it through the controls. That's a very smart way of doing it.
Yeah,
And and it saves a lot of time. And eventually, even the product that we are building, Bhagesh, it's on the same lines. Like we receive a lot of questionnaires from regulators, from auditors,
all the
from
time.
our clients, and that was my job role at Barclays, one of my key job role to answer this.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my God, and Barclays was a huge bank, like so many branches all across the world. And just because I was in Singapore doesn't mean that every department was there. Some department were in US, some department were in UK. So whenever there was a request from the regulator or auditor or a client, I have to go around, knock every door just to get the answers. So when I was building Narad.io, I'm like, no, 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 this needs to be solved. So now, Narad.io, what we are doing is like, it's an AI powered platform where every time you receive a questionnaire, just give it to Narad. It will
Okay.
look at all your policies, all your standards, all your controls, and populate all the responses for you. And not just the responses, it will also give you the reference that this answer is coming from which document and which page number.
That's
So,
interesting.
and like you being from compliance, you'll understand this kind of request take couple of days to couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we get it done in like, I think, couple of minutes. So
Incredible.
so I think AI is doing a lot of stuff, and eventually, like, see, I am also not a coder by job role, but eventually, when I was also trying to map my pain, that what is my pain that I have faced in the compliance and how I can solve it to the AI. And yes, like you said, AI will not replace anyone. So even like when I speak to the fintech companies, I'm like, no, this is not going to replace anyone because even this is a Gen AI. The answers are coming from your policies, and the one thing you said, your prompt has to be right and your document has to be right because in corporate we call it garbage in, garbage out. So if your policies are not right, do not expect Narad to do the wonders. Because a lot of
Exactly.
I get a lot of clients, they are like, we do not have the policy. I'm like, what are you expecting from me then? I can't help you build the policies. Policies have to be inbuilt. The controls have to be inbuilt. I
Yeah.
can only help to fetch the right responses from those documents. So yes, I think AI is doing a lot of wonders, and we are also trying to benefit out of it, Bhagyashri. I think one very interesting thing that I want to ask you: do you really think if there would not have been so much regulatory eye on all these people would do so much? Do you think that?
That's a tricky question.
Yeah.
If there was no regulatory, mandate to comply by all of these requirements, not that we would see all the security features in these products that we see today, but eventually, like data privacy came into action and people started understanding the importance of privacy, security and compliance of these tools would eventually become a necessity. Right now, it could be like an afterthought in the industry, but eventually people would start understanding, looking at the cyber threats that are evolving every year, right? And the kind of expenses the companies have to bear because of the reputational losses or, ransomware or something like that. This would anyway become a requirement, a necessity going ahead. Even if the regulators don't mandate it, security of your tool, of your business would become a mandatory function for anyone to operate. It's not just a regulatory requirement anymore. Regulatory requirements can guide you in how to protect your data or what are the things that you have to implement right away. But I don't think any in these days anyone can sustain without compliance to these security standards. At the most the basic things that are required for a business to survive.
Yeah. No, I think that's also right because regulator only can do much.
Yeah,
Because they cannot go to every office, knock every door. I think
yeah,
they can only create these guidelines, and eventually because you are also mandated by RBI, so you must be receiving a lot of guidelines as well. So I think that's the max they can do, and I think rest comes to the businesses that how serious are they about their business. So with that, Bhageshri, now because we're talking about all these incidences, so what do you think? Like, what does the incident response plan looks like at CRED? Like, let's say, touch wood, if there's an incident today, what does the response plan look like? And the reason I'm asking you because again, there are a lot of new founders who are trying to create the response plan, and I'll also break it down for the people those who might have heard this plan or this term for the first time. Incident response plan is like whenever there's a cyber attack, every attack is called the incidents, and you need to have a right plan, something like that, something like if you've seen in the buildings a fire safety plan. That if the building goes under fire, what are the route you need to take to go down, or you do not need to take the lift, you need to take the stairs. Here is the fire extinguisher, those kind of safety plans, and there are very similar plans in the cybersecurity as well, and we call it incident response plan. So, Bhageshi, what does a good incident response plan looks like? And might be if you're allowed to, if you can also share how does it look at the CRED?
got it. So incident uh, response or detection plan is one of the fundamental things that every company who is following security standards have to implement, right? The first step itself is to detect that incident is occurring in your organization. It is to identify through probably your logs or your alert mechanisms that tell you that there have been suspicious logins at odd hours or data transfer or some kind of behavior that is not normal, an anomaly. So first thing is you have to put your systems right in place to gather all the logs from your critical systems and have the ability to flag an anomaly. That is when your team can actually detect if it is incident or it's just an event that someone logged in and it is not a fault. It's a false
Yeah.
alarm,
False alarm.
right? So detect it is the first step. Then you contain it. When you say contain, you basically isolate those affected systems from the other environment so that the incident doesn't spread to all of your systems in your organization. Then you have to start recovering slowly. And by recover, you have to, after isolation of the systems, you have to your company has to set certain SLAs to recover and respond from this incident. And then they have to have a set of escalation metrics where different level of people, different level of expertise can come and address this incident and help recover from the particular incident that has happened in your organization. And one of the most important thing is also, after the incident has occurred, any organization should make sure that they have an RC, a root cause analysis of what caused that incident and how we can make sure that the incident doesn't occur again. So
Yeah.
it's like a lesson learned for an organization
Yeah.
to deal with with something like this if it happens again, and what can we do to take preemptive measures for it. So it's an extensive, if we look at the process, it involves your basically your SOC team and your
Yeah.
incident response team. It's like a fire drill that that happens in your organizations, and companies actually have to go ahead and test it
Yeah.
if there are right set of people in the escalation metrics, if the SLAs are being met or not for the kind of events that are occurring in your organizations, how many of them were false alarms, and accordingly
Yeah.
set your alerts in your systems. So that
Yeah.
is very important. And also these days, because of the regulations, different regulators are asking to report them the incident within certain time frame.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So like because of DPDPA, we have 72 hours timeline. Certain
Yeah.
has a certain timeline. So it is very important that organizations identify this breach within the right time frame and address it at the right time to the regulators, because again, that could lead to a fine,
Yeah.
even worse. And also, in a way, the customers or the users whose data has been breached also have to be notified these days about this incident. So it's like incident response plan is like your that army at the defense line that is responding, and then you also have to go back and address the public and the regulators about what has happened, why it has happened, and how we will make sure this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, and I think very well explained, Bhageshi, because I think the even when I was listening to you, I think that 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 answered a lot of areas. Like you to start with that. You at least detection is the very crucial. You at least know the incident has happened, isolating it. Then while you're recovering, you need to make sure your SLAs are being met because you cannot take like ever to
Yeah.
recover.
Yeah.
And I think RBI or any regulator, they have got the SLA for every system depending on how critical it is. Is it like most critical, tier one, tier two critical? And then the last thing, the root cause analysis, because what has happened, it shouldn't come back. And I think that's what impact your KRIs. I think a lot of people
Absolutely.
ask like, what are your key risk indicators? So your key risk indicator, one of the biggest key risk indicator, how many security incidents you had in last quarter or last month?
Yeah.
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 So yeah, I think that was a very good insight. I think this is only can come from someone who has spent a good time in the industry. Because if I speak to those who have just looked at the cybersecurity from outside, for them this will be still a lot of bookish terms. But I think because you've been there, you spent some time onto this, you understand how these are being used in the industry. Actually, now while we are taking it to the end, what do you think is being done very well at CRED right now in the terms of security?
Okay. So there are a lot of things to start with. We ensure that our product, like I said, we ensure that our products are shipped compliant to the market. We have a continuous monitoring system also, where these products are evaluated on a timely manner, even after the product is launched, so that any new feature or any new regulation that affects the product is reviewed uh, on regular time intervals. So we have that. We have an extensive infrastructure security team, extensive application security team that ensure that the app is compliant. App is secure, my bad. The app is secure for the users. And at the same time, the infrastructure that we have at CRED is also compliant as per the security standards. Uh, and along with that, we also take data privacy extremely seriously. We have uh, ISO certification for data privacy as well, which ensures that the customer's data is being used for the right purpose and they're informed and we are accountable to the data that they're sharing with us.
Thanks for sharing that, Bhagyashri. Now, one last question before we wrap this up, Bhagyashri. There are a lot of early founders who are interested in compliance and cybersecurity, but again, it could be either unawareness or it could be the budget. But what do you think? A very one tip that you can give to these early founders that they can implement in their products or in their systems without breaking the bank, and eventually that can also help them in the longer term when they scale the product or when they scale the business.
Got it. I think for a new founder, it is very important to ensure that whenever they have a product idea that they have finalized or a business that they have, they plan to go ahead with, they can start with just basically understanding what kind of data the product or their business is going to deal with, right? Or what kind of audience is this business going to affect? For example, if it is going to be a healthcare app or if it is going to be a fintech app, we have to identify the audience and accordingly identify if there are any regulations that talk about how this product has to be designed or how this particular data has to be protected. And I understand the business, the money crunch that is there in the early times, all of that. But just keeping an eye on these regulations and what are the necessary things that have to be done in order to start this business should help in the early stage. But I think, like I said, once you start designing it, it's always good to have a risk and compliance consultant probably who can help you understand the nitty-gritties of implementing these mandatory requirements before you go live. Otherwise, these days the fines and the losses that companies go through because of any cyber threat are immense, and it can take a hit later on your business.
Yeah. So I think that was a good piece of advice for the early founders. Like if they are starting, just make sure, is there any strict regulatory requirement in the space you are operating? If yes, go ahead and start fixing it from the day one. You might do it yourself in
Yeah, use AI, use Google, understand what's happening in your space of business that's coming up.
yeah.
And then eventually, when you get the funds, you can onboard someone and just ask for consultation. It's not necessary that you need someone from day one to start working on it, but it's important that you are aware at least about what other risks that you can face if you get into this business, not just from the business loss perspective, but also the regulations that are around and what could go wrong if you don't abide by them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that was a good tip, Bhagesh. Thank you so much for that. And I think we spoke about a lot of basic things. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge around it, Bhagesh.
Thank you so
Uh,
much.
yes, it was good speaking to you, Bhagesh. And guys, I hope all of you who were tuned in to get the insights from Bhagesh, you got something new. I think very specific thing that I got was around the incident response plan. It is a very detailed explanation that Bhagyashri gave us. So, guys, if you want to get in touch with Bhagyashri, she's available on LinkedIn. If she'll respond or not, I don't guarantee that. But
I will, for
yeah,
sure.
you can reach out to her on LinkedIn if you have any specific doubts around the compliance. But do not reach out that how to get job at CRED, because I think that is something people don't like to answer because that's the secret sauce. People, and I think the only way you can get the job at the big organization by working very hard. I don't think reaching someone on the LinkedIn you can get the job. So yes, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much, Bhagyashri, for all the valuable insights.
Thank you so
And
much, Manoj.
so until next time, bye bye, take care, have a nice day ahead, and see you soon
Thank you
again in the
so
next
much.
episode of podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you.